I use, I adapt to different groups and different lengths of time. And so I have about a 20-30 minute PowerPoint presentation if we can get it up and going. If we don't, I'm not very good at just getting up here and talking about this stuff. But what Johnny's talking about here, have any of you seen this blue book? It's called Tennessee Blue Book. Well, you may know or may not know, I served in the legislature for 30 years. And of course, every 2 years they put out what they call the Tennessee Blue Book. And most of you will recognize the name. You don't have to be a big sports fan to recognize the name of Pat Head Summit, who was at the University of Tennessee for a very long time. And so this was dedicated to her, and it's the 2013-14 Blue Book. And it's the only time I know of that a book wasn't actually blue. So this is something. I have a few that I had left over, and I've just held on to them because they're collector's items. And I want to give this away today to someone who wants it. But see if I can find, how many of you had ancestors in the American Civil War? How many don't know? Well, it's about a 50-50 group here today.
Yeah.
Which is not unusual, by the way. A lot of people haven't done their family genealogy and they just don't know yet. But I had them on both sides. And of you who had them in the Army, who had them on both sides? Who had them just on the federal side, northern side, but not on the Confederate side?
I'm not sure myself.
Well, this area, through Peggy Scott Holly's book, she helps you understand why we have ancestors that some of us do on both sides, which I had. And I had one that was captured in Union City. He was in the Union Army from over around Natchez Trace State Park in Henderson County. And he was captured in Union City, imprisoned at Andersonville, where he died. And I've been to visit his grave several times.
What was his name?
It's Lorinda and our ancestor. We're descended of Elisha Bradfield from Christian Chapel community in Henderson County. So people are surprised. You know, I ran the Cotton Patch, owned and ran the Cotton Patch restaurant for 24 years. And I had a lot of Civil War memorabilia there. And people would come in and they'd get to talking about their ancestors. And they'd come by just to tell me sometime that they found an ancestor. And I'd say, well, what's the person's name? And they would give it to me. And then I had, you may have used Tennesseans in the Civil War, Part 1 and Part 2. And Part 1 lists all the rosters of the Tennesseans in the Confederate Army. And so they would give me the name, and I would look on a Confederate roster. It wouldn't be there. And so I said, well, let me check back here on the Federal roster. And I can't tell you how many times they'd show up on the Federal roster, and they weren't in the Confederate Army. And they would be so disappointed because all their lives they had been told, or they thought, that their ancestor fought for the South. But in this part of the country, it's just not the way. We're a lot like East Tennessee was, just not as much like East Tennessee. So, Johnny, how am I going to give this book away?
Well, who can honestly say that they're a huge Pat Head Summit fan? We're not going to do any kind of litmus test to who is or not, but who is a huge fan?
What is that?
A pad head summit.
Is from that first dig. We started, the park was created, the first parcel was bought in 2001. And it was 56 acres. Today we have 370 acres of what we call core battlefield. And core battlefield is where the heaviest fighting took place. So we bought 56 acres, or the state did. All this property belongs to the state of Tennessee. But the state wouldn't take title to the property unless the city of Parker's Crossroads would agree to maintain and manage the park. So the city, recognizing the economic benefits of having a park there, and some of us weren't as interested in the economic benefits as we were the historical value of the property. So that's how the park got started, with 56 acres. And so we did a planning process. A lot of the grants you get, if it's not on the National Register of Historic Places, you can't qualify for grants. So that was one of the first things we did, was get the Historical Commission to get that application in and processed. And it says planned land acquisition. Well, we've only bought land from willing sellers, so it's hard to plan purchases because people got to want to sell it. And then some of them think there's gold buried under there. So it's expensive. So we did our trail development and started developing our signs. And the marketing plan is where we've fallen short on getting the word out about the park. But this is the National Register area here, the outside boundary. And most of the land we've saved right in here on the some of our volunteers. 13 land acquisitions at a cost of about $4.5 million. And that was the first acquisition, was south of I-40 here. And that's what we call Tour Stop 7. We have 7 tour stops on the driving tour. And the land, the American Battlefield Trust, it used to be called Civil War Preservation Trust. But they raise private dollars and they match grants and other funds that are available to purchase Revolutionary War, War of 1812, and Civil War sites. So that's a list of some contributors that gave to Parker's Crossroads when they were having a fundraising drive. Then we buy the land, and then we have to reclaim it and try to make it look like what it might have looked like at the time of the battle. So this is the John Parker house site. It's back here. You can see this big walnut tree. It's set right back here. His great-grandson told me where the house sat, because no one even has a picture of the house. We don't know what it looked like. I always thought the house sat right here until I talked to his great-grandson. He said, no, it was back north of that walnut tree. So then we get a construction company donated their time and equipment and removed that house and hauled it away. And then we paved it and we got the cannon sitting there. Of course, the house was sitting right here. This is on the south side, Tour Stop 7. There was a manufactured home dealership here. And I didn't think we'd ever get a shot at that land, but it was purchased by the American Battlefield Trust. That's just another shot of it. And this cabin, there's a whole story on it. I won't go into it today, but that was moved there from about 15 miles away. It came from east of Lexington, built in 1851. And we took our volunteers and we moved it one log at a time and reassembled it there on the battlefield. And we wanted to put it over here where we knew there was a house, because you could find signs of it in the dirt, you know, broken glass and rocks and all of this stuff. But the state says, no, the state has full control of everything we do. And it said, you've got to put it where there's not been a structure before, because that's an archaeological site that you may want to explore someday. So anyway, we moved the cabin into this location, and we use it for living history programs. We've got 4 miles of paved walking trails, over 50 interpretive signs. That's around the Jones Cemetery area, tour stop 4. Of course, the State Veterans Cemetery is over here. Let's turn off to it. That's what it looked like when the family gave us the cabin. And logs were in pretty good shape, except on one corner. And that's where we've moved it to today. That's Patrick McIntyre. We dedicated the cabin. That's descendants of the couple. They had 13 children they raised in that cabin. And that's descendants. Some of them came today, the dedication. That's a living history program that we've put on there several times. Dedicated park, June 2010, I guess it was. And National Park Service has been a great help to us. This is Woody Harrell. He retired from Shiloh superintendent a few years ago, and then unfortunately passed away not long ago. Jim Loudheiser was the president and CEO of the American Battlefield Trust. He's since retired. That was Susan Whitaker, who's the commissioner of the Department of Tourist Development. And, you know, you find that's an artillery shell fragment that's been found. You can't hunt on state property anymore, you know, it's against the law. But that's an artillery shell fragment that was found prior to the battlefield. That's a ball out of a shell. That's a mini ball, 3-ring mini. And many of those found. And we still do artillery firing demonstrations. That's one of our crew. And the state's real particular. They don't want you to have opposing sides, liability insurance issues. And we've added these to demonstrate how you pull a cannon. Well, people didn't understand, or still don't understand, how you pull a cannon. And it takes 6 horses to pull the limber. The horses are here. But then the cannon turns around and hooks into the back of the limber. That every cannon had at least one caisson. And what was the purpose of a caisson? Carry the ammunition for the cannon. And a lot of them had several caissons to carry the shell ammunition. And it also took 6 horses to pull those. And the logistics of moving an army, be like it is today, but you've got to have food, and you got to have water. And in their case, they had to have food for the animals. And of course, it took a lot logistical planning to move all of that stuff. But the This is full of shells. There's 2 ammunition chests and another here. We have school groups that come and watch the demonstration. That's my grandson and his dog. This is Fred Prouty, who Division of Archaeology. He's retired, but he met one of the groups that were traveling, these people from all over the country, traveling there. And that's a chamber leadership group. And we've got permission to establish a camping area for the Boy Scouts. So they come, they have their own area. We got water out there for them. And so we want to maximize the use, the visitation of the park. And the visitor center, where your tour should begin. And that's the bookstore. And we serve as a visitor information center for Southwest Tennessee. Well, all of West Tennessee, actually. And so that's, and inside there we have, different interpretations. We have a mountain howitzer cannon, we have a couple of saddles. Then we have over here, we have a fellow contacted me from Knoxville, said he had his great-grandfather's pistol that he was carrying when he was mortally wounded in the Battle of Parker's Crossroads. Said, my family cares nothing about it. I'm looking for an appropriate place to put it. So I got to Knoxville and met him and his wife and saw the pistol, along with a lot of other stuff he had. He was from Franklin, the fellow who was killed in the battle. He was with Forrest Escort, one of the first groups that Forrest organized that didn't get taken away from him when Bragg took his Experience Army, and Forrest had to go out and recruit men even to make this raid. And he had the Army's men from the captured federal supplies. But so long story short, he donated the pistol and 2 half dimes that are bent. When you go look at that display, those half dimes were in his pocket, and the family says the bullet that mortally wounded him bent those dimes in his pocket. And his belt plate, his CS belt plate, is on display there that he was wearing. So that's that. There's a lot to see there. I hope you'll take time to go. That's the pistol I'm talking about. You see his belt plate, belt buckle here. This was a big move for us. We worked for 12 years to get this status, an affiliated site of the National Park Service, which we are now, and it has benefits such as grants and staff assistance and those kind of things. But this was the signing of the agreements between the Park Service, the Historical Society, and the City of Parker's Crossroads. And because we got the Veteran Cemetery and this park, the fellow who built this told me, he said, I want to tell you the reason I chose Parker's Crossroads. And he says, because of the battlefield park and the Veteran Cemetery. So the sales tax revenue, beer tax, all the state share taxes we get help the city operate. And the State Veteran Cemetery, 131 acres here. And we can thank Governor Bill Haslam for that. And we had a great Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Commissioner Minnie Bears Grinder. Some of you might be familiar with Minnie Bears. But There's your state senator standing there. It was built to serve 17 counties. That's the target population for burials to come to the cemetery there. And I think they're like, the first person to be buried there was here in Carroll County. And he was very active in getting funding for this. And but that's that. Over 800 there. And okay, that's that. You got any questions, comments? We're just an hour behind.